Hey, welcome to our weekly devotional podcast video, however you listen to this. And I just want to say thank you to my friend Adam, who puts in effort every week to make sure that these videos are uh, spliced together the correct way and that audio sounds well and all that good stuff. So Adam Getz takes care of that each week. If you'd like to help out in some way, please let me know. If you'd like to just talk about something, we can do that too. You can contact me, jallison@greenwoodbc.com, or you can come find me face to face at the information desk in our main foyer on Sunday mornings. I'd love to meet up with you and talk about whatever it is right there. So with that, today we are going to be talking about Ephesians chapter 4, starting in verse 7 and going through verse 10. Next week, we'll be talking about spiritual gifts. Today, we're going to be looking at the theological reasoning behind why God gives these spiritual gifts. And so with that, let's go ahead and go to Ephesians chapter 4, verse 7. It says, "However, he has given each one of us a special gift through the generosity of Christ. And that is why the scriptures say, when he ascended to the heights, he led a crowd of captives and gave gifts to his people." And if you look at this little note that I'm pulling up in front of you there, it says Psalm 68:18. So he's quoting a psalm there that's a messianic psalm about the Messiah. That psalm is hundreds of years, if not 1,000 years older than the letter from Paul to the Ephesians. And so he's quoting that to illustrate the idea that he's talking about here. And he goes on and he says, notice that it says he ascended. This clearly means that Christ also descended to our lowly world. That's the world where you and I live. And the same one who descended is the one who ascended higher than all the heavens so that he might fill the entire universe with himself. So it talks about Christ descending and ascending. So we're going to come back to that psalm in just a moment. But his ascension, after he's descended, he ascends back up into heaven. And through the generosity of Christ, he gives spiritual gifts at that time. So that means that spiritual gifts come from the generosity of God, the things that he gives to us to enable us to do good works in his kingdom. Remember, good works don't save us, but they are marks that God has changed us, and we start to do certain things. We start to act differently, right? That is because of the generosity of Christ. Now let's talk about those two ideas, descending to earth, that it talks about in verses 9 and 10 there. When Christ descends to earth, we call that the incarnation. God became flesh and dwelled among us, is what the Gospel of John tells us. And so when we think about that, we think about the humility that God has in doing that, as Philippians tells us in chapter 2, and also the unique will and maybe bravery. That's probably not the right word. It'll come to me later. But it makes me think of when my house caught fire a long time ago. We got everybody out of the house, got the dog out of the house, got our dinner out of the house, and the fire department came, and immediately a guy jumped out of the truck, grabbed a fire hose, and went running in the house. And he put himself in danger. He threw himself in the midst of the chaos that was a burning second floor of my house to bring, to rescue, to bring order, to restore the situation back to the way it was supposed to be. And that is what Christ did for us. He came down to earth, but it wasn't just to check it out. He came down for a purpose. He had a mission. And when he accomplished his mission through his death, burial, and resurrection, then he ascended to heaven. And in that ascension, he did something we see through this psalm that is both common to the ancient world and unique within the ancient world. And that's the way a lot of scripture communicates things about Jesus to us. It's often, it seems common, but then there's a unique twist to it. And in this psalm, in Psalm 68, when it says he ascended the heights and he led a crowd of captives and he gave gifts to them, it was very common for a Roman general. I'm thinking of Pompey, who conquered Palestine before the time of Jesus. He was given a triumph. So he would be paraded around. He would be giving gifts. People would shower him with praise. It's the equivalent of our ticker tape parade sort of idea after World War II, right? Like there's this great celebration of this person's accomplishments. That's the language that this is talking about here. When Christ ascends to the heights, he goes back to heaven, and there's this great celebration there. Instead of leading this great parade of victorious warriors and things, he leads a crowd of captives and gives gifts to his people. So he sets free those who are in bondage and gives them gifts. And that's the unique generosity of Christ, is that these gifts that we're going to talk about next time are made available because we serve a God who, when he accomplished his mission in his celebration, he celebrated in a unique way that was on to Act 2 of the mission, which was to overcome evil in this world in the here and now, by giving believers the spiritual gifts to accomplish his mission further on this earth that we live in. And so, man, it's an amazing picture of what Christ did that we're kind of given a window into here in the text of Ephesians chapter 4, reading about these words from Paul to the believers in Ephesus. And we have that same significance of understanding more what it is that Christ did for us and the reason that we have these spiritual gifts. So I hope that's helpful to you, and I look forward to talking more about those spiritual gifts next week. So I'll see you again next week for our weekly devotional. They launch Wednesdays at 7 o'clock.